In the realm of social dynamics, discussions often revolve around alpha and beta females, categorizing women based on their roles in social groups. However, there exists another intriguing archetype that remains less explored: the Sigma female. Sigma females, often perceived as quiet leaders with a penchant for independence, find resonance in the teachings of Stoicism, an ancient philosophy emphasizing virtue, reason, and self-mastery. This exploration delves into Stoic lessons that align with the characteristics attributed to Sigma females, encompassing themes of independence, virtue, emotional resilience, acceptance of nature, equanimity in relationships, and the pursuit of inner freedom. Stoicism, with its emphasis on self-sufficiency and inner strength, provides a philosophical backdrop that resonates with the Sigma female's inclination towards independence. In the Stoic framework, individuals are encouraged to rely on their own virtues, cultivating inner resilience. The Sigma female's comfort in solitude and preference for autonomy align with Stoic principles, illustrating a journey of self-discovery and reliance on personal strengths. The Stoic philosophy places a profound emphasis on the cultivation of virtue, encompassing qualities such as integrity, wisdom, courage, and justice. This aligns seamlessly with the Sigma female's commitment to personal growth and character development. As the Sigma female progresses through life, she embodies Stoic virtues, creating a harmonious integration of inner strength and ethical principles. Stoicism imparts valuable lessons on managing emotions and responding to external events with rationality. The Sigma female, known for emotional resilience, finds solace in Stoic practices that foster a calm and composed mindset in the face of life's challenges. This emotional composure becomes a cornerstone of the Sigma female's ability to navigate the complexities of her unique journey. Stoicism encourages acceptance of the natural order and the inevitability of certain circumstances. For individuals embodying the Sigma mindset, adapting to situations without unnecessary resistance becomes a valuable lesson. The Sigma female's ability to gracefully accept the ebb and flow of life echoes the Stoic principle of finding tranquility in acknowledging the limits of one's control. Stoicism provides insights into maintaining healthy and balanced relationships, an aspect that aligns with the Sigma female's approach to social interactions. Appreciating Stoic teachings on kindness, understanding, and fairness, the Sigma female navigates relationships while maintaining personal boundaries. This delicate balance reflects the Sigma female's ability to forge connections without compromising her individuality. Stoicism's emphasis on finding true freedom within oneself resonates with the Sigma female's pursuit of independence. The philosophy teaches that genuine freedom comes from the control of one's thoughts and attitudes. This aligns seamlessly with the Sigma female's inclination to choose her own path, finding liberation in her autonomy and adherence to personal principles. The Stoic journey of the Sigma female unfolds in stages, akin to a metamorphosis, a transformation from introversion to empowered selfhood. In the initial stage, the Sigma female embraces introversion, demonstrating a comfort in solitude that may be mistaken for shyness. This introspective phase sets the foundation for the subsequent stages of growth. The independent adventurer emerges in the second stage, as the Sigma female embarks on solo adventures driven by curiosity and a thirst for knowledge. Solitude becomes an opportunity for self-examination and personal development. This stage signifies the Sigma female's bravery and self-reliance, qualities deeply rooted in Stoic teachings. Transitioning to the third stage, the Sigma female evolves into a self-reliant planner. Taking control of her life, she makes independent choices, plans meticulously, and displays resilience in the face of challenges. The Sigma female becomes a thoughtful strategist, always anticipating and navigating her next steps with determination and inventiveness. The final stage witnesses the empowered Sigma, a woman who fully understands herself, is self-sufficient and in complete control. Unfettered by societal expectations, she leads with honesty and determination, not by dictating to others but by guiding herself. This progression through stages represents the Sigma female's path toward personal growth, marked by an embrace of solitude, gaining independence, and meticulous planning leading to self-empowerment. In the intricate tapestry of human personalities, the Sigma female emerges as a unique archetype, a quiet leader, self-reliant, and resilient. Stoicism, with its timeless wisdom, serves as the guiding philosophy that nurtures the strength, independence, and endurance inherent in the Sigma female's character. Marcus Aurelius's words, "You have power over your mind, not outside events," encapsulate the core principle embraced by Sigma females. Stoicism provides a guiding mantra for them, emphasizing inner strength over external circumstances. The philosophy instills resilience, patience, and contentment, empowering Sigma females to gracefully navigate life's challenges. The success of Sigma females, often surpassing their alpha counterparts, lies in their distinctive approach to success. Unlike alphas who seek popularity and power, Sigma females shine independently, making their own goals and achieving them with quiet confidence. Their strategic thinking, ability to avoid drama, and focus on personal growth set them apart in various fields. In understanding the stages of a Sigma female's journey from introversion to empowered selfhood, one uncovers the complexity and depth of their character. Stoicism acts as a guiding force in this progression, reinforcing the importance of solitude, independence, and strategic planning. In essence, Sigma females are not just individuals. They embody a philosophy of life. They are the quiet leaders who forge their own paths, finding approval within themselves. Their strength, resilience, and cleverness, deeply rooted in Stoic principles, make them formidable individuals who leave an indelible impact on the world. As we unravel the mysteries surrounding Sigma females, we appreciate the allure of their unique journey, a journey guided by Stoic wisdom, marked by independence, virtue, and the pursuit of inner freedom. Each Sigma woman, with her distinct journey and pace, becomes a testament to the enduring philosophy that shapes her. Stoicism, the silent force empowering Sigma females to live life on their own terms.